It began on a snow-covered morning, with a knock at the door that would echo through their lives, not loud, just steady, the kind that brings a miracle in silence. A heartwarming tale of second chances and found family. This story follows Cole, a single dad, who opens his home to Hannah and her twin daughters after their cast-out. Through quiet kindness, deep love, and quiet resilience, they build something beautiful, proving family isn't always blood but chosen. Let us begin. The wind curled softly against the windows, as though whispering a secret to glass. Inside a modest house nestled at the edge of a sleepy town, a man stood over a kitchen stove in the early light of winter. Coffee hissed gently behind him, and a small voice yawned from a hallway. "Dad." Cole turned. His face was worn but not tired, like a book read many times and still loved. The corners of his eyes crinkled, and his shoulders eased at the sound of his son's voice. "Morning, Otis," he said quietly. The boy padded barefoot across the cold tile, wrapping himself in the long hem of his father's flannel shirt. Otis was 8, with the look of someone older tucked behind curious eyes. Cole poured the coffee, then slid a mug toward the seat at the counter where his son always sat. Not for coffee, but because it made him feel grown. They had their rituals, small and sacred. Morning talks, burnt toast, mismatched socks. Cole never corrected them. He believed in letting certain things be imperfect. Outside, snow had started to fall. The first real snow of the season. It blanketed the ground like a memory, trying to be remembered. Cole didn't say much as he watched it. Just stood there, coffee in hand, as though waiting for something he couldn't name. There was a bench on the far end of town, near the library, half covered in wind-blown leaves and brittle cold. That's where he saw her first. She sat with her arms around 2 small children, twins maybe, bundled in coats too thin for the air. Her face was still, too still, like someone who had long stopped expecting warmth. One of the children was crying softly into her sleeve. The other stared at the sky. Cole didn't stop at first, just passed by with a slow glance, something tugging at his chest, something old. He didn't believe in fate, not really, but grief has a way of recognizing its reflection. He walked past, got 10 steps, then stopped. He turned around. "Cold morning," he said gently. The woman nodded without looking at him. "Yeah." Her voice was careful, soft in the way of someone guarding something precious. "Kids, all right." "They're tired," she said. He looked down at the small pair of shoes, pink with worn Velcro, and something in his chest ached. "I have an extra coat," he said, "for kids, from when Otis was smaller. Not much, but warm." She finally looked up. Her eyes were green, but dulled, as if the light in them had dimmed over time. He saw the question in them. "What do you want?" "I'm not trying to bother you," Cole said. I know what it's like. That's all." A pause. Then she nodded, just slightly, like a thread giving way. They sat at a diner, not far from the bench. The kids, June and Anna, she said, ate quietly, shoveling scrambled eggs into their mouths like it was the first meal in days. Cole watched them, quietly. Hannah, that was her name, barely touched her food. "They kicked us out last week," she said, stirring her coffee. "His parents, after the funeral." Cole didn't ask who he was. That didn't matter. Not now. They said I wasn't part of the family anymore, that they were doing us a favor. She looked away. "I didn't fight. I couldn't. I just want to get the girls out." There was silence between them, but it wasn't cold. Cole nodded, slowly. "That's hard." The bell above the door chimed as a family entered, laughing, wrapped in scarves, brushing snow off their shoulders. Hannah turned away slightly. "They're good kids," she whispered. "I just don't know what to do." Cole thought of the bench, the thin coats, the tiny shoes, and he thought of Otis, who had asked once, only once, if he'd ever have a brother or sister. "You can come stay," he said. She blinked. "What?" I've got space. Not much, but more than a bench." He half smiled. "Safe. Warm. Just until you figure things out." There was a long silence. Long enough for the world to turn slightly softer. "You don't know me," she said quietly. "No," Cole said. But I know what it's like to need someone and not have the words to ask. She didn't answer, but her shoulders relaxed for the first time all morning. The house had 2 bedrooms. Otis gave up for the twins and moved into his dad's room without a single complaint. Just carried his pillow and said, "We can camp." Hannah tried to protest, but Cole waved her off. He likes the company. Besides, we've done worse. One spent a whole night in a hospital chair watching cartoons. This is heaven compared. The first night was quiet, except for the snow tapping on the roof like fingers on an old piano. Cole couldn't sleep. He watched Otis breathing softly beside him and listened to the faint creak of the house adjusting to its new guests. Something had shifted, not just the sleeping arrangements. Something in the air. The days grew into something like routine. Hannah washed dishes with her sleeves rolled to the elbows. The twins played with Otis in the living room, making forts from blankets and laughter. Cole found himself lingering in doorways, just listening. He noticed small things, Hannah humming while folding laundry, the way she checked on the girls 3 times before bed, just to tuck their blankets in again, how she placed a hand gently on their heads when they were sleeping, as if to say, "You're safe now." He didn't ask about her past, and she didn't offer. Some stories unfold slowly, like frost melting from a window. One night, the girls were asleep, and Otis had gone to a friend's house. Cole and Hannah sat by the fireplace. She on the floor, he in the old recliner that groaned when he moved. "You were married?" she asked. "Yeah," he said. "Cancer. Fast." He didn't say more. She didn't ask. Instead, she stared into fire for a long time. "His name was Ezra," she said eventually. "The girls don't remember much. He was gone before their 3rd birthday. I'm sorry." She nodded. Then, after a while, he used to hum when he rocked them to sleep. Same song every night. Sometimes I think they remember it in their bones, even if they don't know why. Cole looked at her. Her eyes weren't dull anymore. They were full of ghosts, but also something else. Grit, warmth, ache. The kind of beauty that only grows in broken places. One morning, Otis brought out a shoebox. Inside were paper stars, painted rocks, and a folded note. He handed it to June shyly. "It's for you," he said. "You can add your own stuff, too." June opened it slowly, then hugged the box to her chest. Cole watched from the doorway. That night, he found the box again, tucked in the corner of the twins' room, now filled with 2 pink hair clips, a feather, and a picture June had drawn. It said, "Home. One evening in early spring." Hannah found a letter in the pocket of her coat. It was old, creased at the edges. Ezra's handwriting. She read it sitting on the back porch while the children laughed somewhere inside. The letter said simply, "If anything happens, I hope someone is kind to you. You always deserve that." Her breath caught. She folded it gently and held it to her chest. And in the silence that followed, she let the tears fall, quiet and grateful. Cole never asked why she was crying when she came back in. He just handed her a cup of tea and touched her shoulder lightly. She didn't move away. Spring melted into the edges of the yard, tiny green shoots pushing through the frostbitten earth. Otis and the twins planted marigolds with their hands in the soil. Something about planting, Cole whispered one afternoon. It teaches patience. Hope. Hannah stood beside him, arms crossed loosely. "They really love him," she said, watching Otis gently guide Anna's hands through the dirt. "He's got a big heart," Cole said. "Got it from his mom." Hannah looked up at him. "And you?" He shrugged. "I'm just trying not to mess him up." She smiled. Small. Real. That night, as the children fell asleep one by one and the firelight danced on the walls, Cole sat beside the couch where Hannah rested. "Thank you," she said softly. "For what?" "For letting us be here." He looked at her for a long moment. "You're not just here, Hannah," he said. "You're part of it." A beat passed. A breath. Then she whispered, "That's the first time I felt that in years." Outside, the wind had gone still. And inside, something warm and sacred settled in the quiet between them. The walls of the house creaked a little louder now. It wasn't age, it was life. The sound of footsteps echoing across with floors at odd hours. The quiet thump of toys underfoot. the clatter of mismatched dishes in the sink. All of it spoke of a place no longer hollow. Cole noticed a shift before he admitted it. He used to come home to silence. Now he came home to color. Crayon scribbles on the fridge, the faint scent of strawberries from someone's shampoo, laughter drifting from under a blanket fort. The silence hadn't disappeared. It had been replaced by something softer, by belonging. The snow outside had melted into spring, but the world still felt fragile, like thawed ground you didn't want to step on too hard. Inside, the home they were building came together not with grand gestures, but with small, steady rituals. Otis brushing June's curls from her eyes before bed. Hannah scribbling tiny notes on napkins for Anna's lunchbox. Little hearts drawn in the corner. Cole watching it all from the doorway. Coffee in hand. Try to remember the exact moment the ache in his chest had become something else. It wasn't easy. Most days it was far from it. The house was small. 2 bedrooms, a tired kitchen with flickering overhead light, and a bathroom door that stuck when it rained. Tensions flared over things as simple as toothpaste caps or cereal choices. Otis sometimes shut down when the noise got too loud. He wasn't used to sharing his space, his father, his routines. June and Anna, just 5, mirror each other's moods like tiny shadows. If one cried, the other followed. If one laughed, the house glowed. One morning, after a particularly rough night, sibling squabbles and spilled milk, Cole found Otis curled on the couch with his back to the room. "You all right, bud?" he asked gently. Otis didn't answer. Cole sat beside him without speaking, both staring at the window. "They take up all the air," Otis finally whispered. Cole nodded. "I know. It's a lot. I liked it when it was just us." Silence again, soft and necessary. "You think we made a mistake?" Otis asked. Cole looked at his son's small, serious face and felt the weight of the question. "No," he said after a beat. "But I think it's okay to miss what we had before." He reached into the old wooden box they kept near the bookshelf, a memory box, their own tradition. He pulled out a picture. Just the 2 of them, sitting on the tailgate of a truck, holding gas station slushies and smiling like they didn't know how fragile time could be. "Nothing takes us away," Cole said. "It's still ours." Otis didn't speak, but he didn't turn away again. That night, he gave Anna the last piece of his candy bar, without being asked. In the middle of April, the light changed. It came in through the windows differently, longer, lazier. The girls danced in sunbeams like they were stepping into a fairy tale. Hannah started leaving the back door open when she cooked. The sound of children laughing drifted in on the breeze, tangled with the scent of baking bread and earth. She had found work part-time at a local bookstore. Quiet, dusty, the kind of place where time didn't rush you. Each evening, she came home with ink on her fingers and a story to tell. "I shelved poetry today," she said once, wiping flour from her cheek as she cooked dinner. "I forgot how much I missed it." Cole watched her quietly, the way her voice softened when she talked about books, the way her hands moved when she chopped onions, efficient, careful, like someone who had spent years doing everything for someone else. She never said out loud, but Cole saw it. She was coming back to herself. One afternoon, it rained, not the soft kind, but a heavy, all-day storm that turned the yard to mud and the windows to watercolor. The kids built a city out of cardboard in the living room. Cole made soup. Hannah lit candles. The power flickered and went out. There were no screams, no panic, just 4 pairs of eyes in the glow of candlelight, and a silence so peaceful it could break your heart. Otis pulled out a flashlight and held it under his chin like a ghost storyteller. "I once knew a girl," he whispered dramatically, "who ate nothing but marshmallows for a whole week." June shrieked with laughter. Anna rolled her eyes. Hannah leaned against Cole's shoulder and smiled. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For giving them this." He didn't know what to say. Sometimes, all he had were gestures. He reached across the couch and took her hand. She didn't let go. The next day, a letter came in the mail. It was from Ezra's mother. Just a card, plain and stiff. The handwriting inside was formal, distant. "Hope the girls are well. Please send updates." Hannah read it once, then set it down without expression. She didn't say a word, all evening. That night, Cole found on the back porch, arms wrapped tight around herself despite the warm air. They didn't want us, she said quietly. And now they remember they had grandchildren. He didn't answer. I'm scared, she admitted, that they'll come back, that they'll try to take them, and I won't be enough to stop it. The porch light flickered once and then steadied. Cole sat beside her, not touching, not pressing. I don't know what's coming, he said softly, but I know this. Whatever it is, we won't let them go alone. The words weren't dramatic. They weren't even loud, but they were enough. Summer bloomed, not in grand moments, but in soft ones. Otis learned how to ride a bike with no hands. June got her first bee sting and cried until Hannah kissed her elbow and the world was right again. Anna fell asleep in Cole's lap during movie night, drooling a little, her small hand curled around his thumb. The memory box began to fill with new things. Ticket stubs from a drive-in movie, a rock painted like a ladybug, a note in Otis's crooked handwriting that said, "Family equals all of us." One night, after the kids were in bed, Cole and Hannah sat on the front steps, watching the stars come out. I used to think healing was loud, she said, that it came all at once. Cole glanced at her. And now I think maybe it's in the quiet, the choosing, every day. He nodded, not because he understood everything, but because he trusted her truth. Fireflies blinked lazily in the tall grass. She leaned her head on his shoulder. You ever think about tomorrow? She asked. I used to be scared of it. And now, I don't know, he said, but it feels less heavy when you're here. She smiled. That weekend they had a picnic, a blanket under the old oak tree in the park, sandwiches wrapped in wax paper, lemonade in mason jars. The girls wore matching dresses. Otis wore grass stains and pride. It was the kind of day that didn't seem like much. Until later, when someone would remember in detail, the way the wind smelled like clover, the way Hannah laughed at her whole face, the way Cole looked at them all like he'd found something he didn't even know he was looking for. At one point, June turned to Otis and said very seriously, when we grow up, you can still be our brother, okay? Otis blinked, then nodded. Okay. And somewhere in the quiet that followed, something invisible took root. That night, Hannah tucked the girls in. She hummed, barely audible, a tune she hadn't sung since Ezra. And when she looked down at them, curled together, breathing slow and steady, she didn't feel guilt or fear. She felt peace. Cole sat in the hallway, leaning against the wall, eyes closed. She sat down beside him. Do you ever feel like we're stealing this? He opened his eyes. What do you mean? Like it wasn't supposed to be ours. Like we're pretending. He was quiet for a long time. Then he reached into his pocket and handed her something. A key. To the house, he said. To the family. To whatever this is. Her eyes welled. You're not stealing anything, he added gently. You're building it. Every day. She didn't answer. She just took the key, held it tight, like it was more than metal, like it was proof. The sun rose the next morning like it always did. Slow, soft, hopeful. Inside the house, the floor creaked under the weight of little feet running toward breakfast. The smell of toast, the scrape of chairs, the sound of family, messy, loud, imperfect, and home. And on the fridge, stuck between magnets and crayon hearts, was a note in June's handwriting. It said, "Thank you for choosing us." The letter arrived on a Tuesday. It was tucked between a grocery store flyer and a utility bill, its envelope heavy with formality. Hannah recognized the handwriting immediately, precise, slanted, and cold. It belonged to Margaret, her late husband Ezra's mother. She stood by the mailbox, the morning sun casting long shadows across the porch, and stared at the envelope. The air was thick with the scent of blooming jasmine, but the letter in her hand made her stomach churn. Inside, the house was alive with the sounds of breakfast, clinking dishes, children's laughter, and the hum of the radio. Cole was flipping pancakes, his back turned to the doorway. Hannah slipped the letter into her apron pocket and joined the family, forcing a smile as she kissed June and Anna on their foreheads. Later that evening, After the children were asleep and the house had settled into its nightly hush, Hannah sat on the porch swing, the unopened letter resting on her lap. The moonlight filtered through the trees, casting dappled patterns on the wooden floorboards. Cole joined her, 2 mugs of tea in hand. He offered one to her, his eyes searching hers. "Everything all right?" he asked gently. She hesitated, then handed him the letter. He read it silently, his brow furrowing. "They want to see the girls," he said finally. Hannah nodded. "They say they've changed, that they want to be part of their granddaughters' lives." Cole looked at her, concern etched on his face. "Do you believe them?" She shook her head. "I don't know, but I can't ignore it." The following weekend, Margaret and her husband, Thomas, arrived. They brought gifts, dolls with porcelain faces, and dresses too delicate for play. June and Anna accepted them politely, their eyes wide with curiosity. Hannah watched from the doorway, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. Cole stood beside her, his presence a steady anchor. Margaret approached, her smile tight. "They're beautiful girls, Hannah. You've done well." Hannah nodded, her voice steady. "They've had a lot of love." Thomas cleared his throat. "We were hoping to discuss the possibility of more regular visits, perhaps even weekends." Hannah's heart pounded. "That's a big step." Margaret's eyes narrowed slightly. "We just want what's best for them." In the weeks that followed, the visits became more frequent. Margaret and Thomas would take the girls to the park, to the zoo, always returning them with stories of grand adventures. Hannah tried to be gracious, to believe in the possibility of reconciliation. But something gnawed at her, a sense that there was more beneath the surface. One afternoon, while tidying up the girls' room, she found a brochure tucked under June's pillow. It was for a prestigious boarding school in another state. Her hands trembled as she read the note scribbled inside, "For our granddaughter's bright future." She confronted Margaret the next day. "What is this?" she demanded, holding up the brochure. Margaret's expression remained composed. "Just an option. We want them to have every opportunity." Hannah's voice shook. "You never wanted them before. Why now?" "NetGalley." Margaret sighed. "Things change. People change." The legal papers arrived a week later. Margaret and Thomas were seeking custody of June and Anna. They claimed Hannah was unfit, that the girls deserved a more stable environment. Hannah sat at the kitchen table, the documents spread before her, tears streaming down her face. Cole stood behind her, his hands on her shoulders. "We'll fight this," he said firmly. She nodded, her resolve hardening. "They won't take my babies." In court, the battle was fierce. Margaret and Thomas presented themselves as the ideal grandparents, wealthy, connected, and concerned. They painted Hannah as unstable, citing her past struggles and current living situation. But Hannah and Cole stood firm, presenting a home filled with love, stability, and growth. They brought in teachers, neighbors, and friends who testified to the nurturing environment the girls thrived in. The judge listened, weighing each side carefully. In the end, the court ruled in favor of Hannah, granting her full custody. Margaret and Thomas were allowed supervised visits, but their influence was curtailed. That evening, as the sun set, Hannah sat on the porch swing. June and Anna nestled beside her. Cole joined them, his arm draped around her shoulders. "We did it," he whispered. She nodded, her eyes misty. "They're safe." June looked up. "Are we going to be okay, Mama?" Hannah smiled, kissing her daughter's forehead. "Yes, sweetheart. We're going to be just fine." Snow fell quietly the night Hannah placed the final ornament on the tree. A small wooden bird, hand-painted, its wings curved mid-flight, rested near the top, beside Otis's paper star and a garland June and Anna had made from pine cones and red yarn. The living room was hushed, golden with firelight, breathing slow with the kind of peace earned only after a long season of ache. Behind her, Cole stood watching. Not the tree, not the falling snow. Her. There was something about the way she tucked a curl behind her ear, unaware she was being seen. How her fingers paused, hovering on the ornament, as if remembering something too tender to speak aloud. He crossed the room, his footsteps soft against the wooden floor, and wrapped the shawl tighter around her shoulders. "You're still shivering," he murmured. She smiled without looking. Old memories always come a little cold. He didn't ask which memory. He didn't need to. Outside, Otis and the twins were laughing somewhere beneath the porch light, making snow angels they'd later declare looked nothing like angels, just wiggly ghosts in the yard. Otis said, proud. The fire crackled low. The clock ticked in slow rhythm. Hannah leaned into Cole's side, letting herself rest there, letting herself belong. There was no singular moment when everything changed. No grand declaration or sudden kiss under the stars. It happened slowly, like snow accumulating on a fence post, flake by flake, unnoticed until one morning the world looked new and softly blanketed. Hannah had moved her things into the spare room over spring. Cole never offered. She never asked. It just happened. A lamp here, her books there, a sweater left on the coat hook long enough to become a fixture. Cole had taken down the boxes labeled Emma from the attic on his own time, not to erase, but to make space. That's how healing came for them, not in decorations, but in space. Otis had started calling Hannah Mom one afternoon without warning. It was after scraped knee and an ice pop and her kneeling in the grass beside him saying, "You're brave, baby, so brave." He looked at her, blinking away tears, and simply said it. "Thanks, Mom." She didn't correct him. Later, when he had gone to bed and Cole was still at work, she went to the kitchen and cried with her head bowed over the sink. Not because she was sad, but because it felt like grace. Like the sky had opened and handed her a word she'd been waiting for without knowing. Summer came soft and gold. They drove to the lake in June, the whole family squeezed into Cole's old truck that still smelled faintly of sawdust and coffee. The girls pressed their noses to the window, counting cows. Otis played DJ with a cassette mix he'd made, Fleetwood Mac and Carole King, and something scratchy and old from Cole's stash. At the water's edge, Cole taught the girls to skip stones while Hannah read beneath the sycamore, watching more than she read. Later, June fell asleep in her lap, and Cole snapped a photo from across the grass. It became their first family portrait. No one was dressed for it. No one was looking. Just sunlight and sleep and the quiet knowing of being held. In late September, a letter came in the mail. This time, it was not from Margaret. It was from Ezra, written 5 years earlier, postmarked months before he passed. Hannah found it in a stack of old journals, tucked between grocery lists and recipes, sealed and yellowing. She opened it slowly, her hands trembling. "If you're reading this, I didn't make it, but I knew you'd survive me. You always had a kind of fire I never deserved. I hope the girls grow up with someone better than me, someone patient, gentle, a man who knows how to build more than silence. I hope they call him Dad. And if that happens, I hope you know I'm glad. Truly, let them love who loves them best. That's all I ever wanted for you." She folded the letter and placed it in a frame, not to look at often, just to remember that love, Real love, let's go. Autumn painted the valley amber and red. Otis turned 12, the girls 7. They hosted a small party in the yard, just friends and neighbors, cupcakes on a plaid blanket, a game of tag that turned into a laughing pile of limbs and giggles. Cole grilled hot dogs. Hannah played music on the porch speaker. When the sun dipped low, Cole took out his guitar, and the girls begged for the song about the river he used to sing to Otis at bedtime. His voice was rough, a little weathered, but it carried like prayer. Hannah sang the chorus with him. Otis closed his eyes and smiled like he'd never known anything else. The wedding was a quiet one. No aisle, no announcements. Just a morning in October where the light was soft and the leaves were falling in swirls like confetti. They stood in the backyard, under the same tree where Cole had once built Otis a swing. June and Anna held wildflowers. Otis held the ring. Hannah wore a dress the color of cream and old lace. Cole wore his best flannel shirt. The vows were whispered, not for show, just for them. I promise to be your safe place. I promise to meet you where it's quiet. I promise to love them like they're mine. You already do. The only sound afterward was the wind, and Otis whispering, "Can we have pancakes now?" That night, the 5 of them made pancakes by candlelight. The power had gone out in a windstorm, but no one cared. They lit every candle they owned. The house glowed like a memory. They ate on the floor, laughed with their mouths full. Anna spilled syrup on her new dress. June wore a tiara from the dollar store. Otis gave a toast with chocolate milk in a chip mug. To our miracle, he said. Everyone raised their cups. No one corrected him. In the hallway, beside the family photos, hung a wooden plaque carved with 5 names. Cole, Hannah, Otis, June, Anna. Underneath, 1 word. Home. For those of us who've lived long enough to know that life rarely goes as planned, stories like these remind us love still finds a way, even in winter. If this touched your heart, know you're not alone. We'd love to have you back here, by the firelight, for more gentle tales that speak to the soul. Come back anytime. Your seat's always waiting.